My name is Fiona Phillips and I'm Labor's candidate for Gilmore. I was the Labor's candidate for Gilmore in the previous election. I live in Callala Beach in Jervis Bay. I was born on the south coast, raised on the south coast and raising my family here. I'm a TAFE teacher when I'm not campaigning. I am married to a tradie who is self-employed and I've been part of the south coast community all my life, growing up on a dairy farm as well. So I think, is that enough for an introduction?
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming tonight. One of the things you want to see when you're in politics is other people that are willing to take part and step up. So I'd just like to thank all of you for being here tonight, regardless of what your politics are. I'm Shultz. I'm the independent candidate. I live in Mollymook. My lovely wife Rebecca, who's here with me tonight. Rebecca also grew up in this area, although she moved away, like so many others, for education and, of course, work. Thank goodness we made a decision 10 years ago to come back to the coast, and she brought me with and our children with her. So I had 28 years in the AFP. In fact, I've got one of my former work colleagues here tonight, which is always good to catch up with. Served primarily in the ACT. I did community policing, international organised crime, such as drug importing and so on, and counter-terrorism roles. So I've had quite a diverse career in that respect. I also served for a number of years in overseas missions such as East Timor, just a little bit to our north. So I said I owned and operated a number of businesses here, so we do since 2007, so I understand the challenges of small business. I grew up myself on a farm in Cootamundra, a little bit further west than where we are now, but also understand the particular challenges which have been a particular issue of late with agriculture and so on, particularly with the drought taking such a huge toll, not just on our farming community, but on our country as a whole. Well, that's probably enough from me. Hopefully, if you've got any more questions, please feel free to ask away once we get that far, but thank you.
My name's Carmel McCallum and I'm standing in Gilmore for the Greens Party, and I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land on which we are meeting, and to also acknowledge that this land was never ceded. It was and always will be Aboriginal land. I grew up in Campbelltown, the eldest of 8 children, in southwest Sydney that is, and became a pharmacist, studied at Sydney Uni, moved to Nowra, married a pilot in the Navy, who doesn't fly any longer of course, and we've had a posting to the USA for a couple of years. I had my own business, my own pharmacy in Berry Street, Nowra for 9 years. I have 4 children. Run for federal parliament 4 times, but twice for Macquarie. We lived in the Blue Mountains for 20 years because of my husband's job. You know, that's a factor that women end up going with their husband's career. And came back 7 years ago to the south coast to beautiful Camberwara where we live. I mean, it's all beautiful really, isn't it? So I first of all became involved in politics because of our going into Iraq under a lie of weapons of mass destruction, and we know what that has opened up since then. Yes, I'd just like to say that the greatest issue of our time is climate change. It doesn't have to be frightening. We can deal with it. We can do something now, and it's an opportunity. We moved from the horse and cart to the car. We can move in transition away from coal, the greatest producer of carbon gas emissions.
Thanks very much, Carmel. Can I say thank you to John and Gary for organising tonight. It's a huge amount of work that you've done to organise tonight. Thank you. Thank you to the audience for being here this evening. It's a wonderful crowd, and I'm looking forward to listening to your questions as the evening progresses. Welcome to the candidates, and congratulations for your tilted democracy. Can I also just acknowledge also Sophie Wade, who's joined us. Sophie's the National Party candidate for Eden-Monaro and has popped over the border briefly this evening for a couple of hours. Great to see you, Sophie. First time in the campaign. My name's Katrina Hodgkinson. I'm running for the Nationals for the seat of Gilmore in this election. I live at Nowra, just outside of Nowra, and I've got a small farm at Berrima. I'm originally from Yass in country New South Wales, just north of Canberra. I grew up on a farm in the middle of 3 daughters in an area that's unfortunately very prone to drought, so I know all about it. So, strong farming background. My husband, Jack, grew up in Sassafras, which is not too far from Nowra, just in the hinterland there. Beautiful Tinjara Falls, that sort of area. And we have a lot of family in this electorate. I have 2 children, Georgia, who's at the University of Wollongong, living on campus, and Hamilton, who's in Year 9. And Jack is a stay-at-home dad, and he's just been wonderful for my career. So I was a member of State Parliament for 18 and a half years, representing parts of Southern Regional New South Wales, and it was great to have somebody there at home that you knew was going to be there when the kids came home in the afternoon. So I'll always say thank you to Jack, and he's sorry that he can't be here this evening. But look, I'll move over to Milton and just say thanks again for having us here this evening.
Thanks, Katrina. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and likewise thank you to John and Gary for organising tonight. It's great to see so many people here. My name is Milton Leslight, and I'm representing the United Australia Party, and we're here to see a change. From my background point of view, I left the city of Sydney with my family, young family at the time, about 19 years ago, and discovered how beautiful this part of paradise is. Our family embraced it. My children, we've actually had a local. He's here with me tonight, 17-year-old. So that's quite a mean feat to be classed as a local. But moving on. With regard to my background, primarily been in business, involved in the industry of manufacturing, textiles, automotive, wholesale, retail. I've been involved and managed from small companies to large multinationals. My introduction to the political scene was by accident. And in my business here, I was too old to get a job, so we made one and got involved in real estate. I discovered 9 years ago, a lot of the people here in our community on the south coast were getting a tough road from our council, and I decided to write a fairly strong letter to the then planning minister, state minister, Mr. Hazard. He ignored that. I don't often put pen to paper, but it took a lot of effort. And so with that decision of his, I took out a full-page ad in the local paper. Goodness me, that changed my world. I'm passionate about getting the right thing done for people. I was elected into council, in the local council, and we made some significant changes. Some of you may know me from the Eurobodalla Council, some won't, but very proud of what we did at the time, and very passionate about what's to be done for our community. Thank you for your time. I'll hand you over to Warren.
Thanks, Milton. I also would like to thank the organisers for tonight, and also all you people who come out here for tonight's session. Missing Game of Thrones, I believe, but anyway. I'm Warren Mundine. I also wish to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that we're living on as well. My background is, of course, I live at Bombadary. I'm of Aboriginal background, of course, but I'm a direct descendant of the Yuin people from this area, from my mother's side. My father's side comes from the north coast. I was born in Grafton, New South Wales. I spent more than half my life in the bush, and I've spent the last 14 years in Sydney. My background is that I started work as a fitter, as a tradie. Worked on gas pipelines, worked in mining industry across Australia, worked in very remote and regional Australia for many years doing that type of work. I also went off and worked for Andrew Twiggy Forrest, of course, who's the mining magnate from Western Australia, and worked on his employment and business development programs. for remote and regional Indigenous communities, as well as regional and South Australia and New South Wales and Victoria, particularly on how you create businesses, how you work with small businesses. And I ran a number of small businesses myself. In fact, my sons and that, they run air conditioning, refrigeration, small businesses, as well as commercial electrical businesses and that. Very familiar with that, with the small business industry, and very strong in support of it because of regional Australia. They're the biggest employers. You know, more than 70 to 80% of people employed in regional Australia is through small business. So it's about how we keep them going and operating. I've been an advisor to government in regard to developing economic development and that and programs. So that's what my biggest focus is. So I'll leave it at that and then pass it back.